welcome again to another edition of The Right Has Left. I am your host, Roy Carton, and as each and every week on this podcast, we talk about all things Trump administration and the Republican Party, as well as things that are going on with the Democrats. Before I get into politics, I want to take a moment just to reflect on the situation that's going on with the Guthrie family, Savannah Guthrie and her missing mother, Nancy. I just hope and pray that everything comes out okay on a positive note. We know the family is going through extreme stress right now as the FBI and local officials again attempt to locate Nancy and the people that have allegedly kidnapped her, and they are going through the ransom notes, and it's still an ongoing investigation. I just wanted, though, to pause as a fellow journalist myself, that this all comes out on a positive note for the entire family. So having said that, let's go ahead and get into our news of the week. And of course, as we always start out, I've got my top story here at the beginning. Sometimes I put it at the middle, sometimes I put it at the end. But you know what? We have got to get into the news starting off right now early, and that is this thing with this ridiculous, stupid meme that Trump put up showing our former president, Barack Obama, and his wife as primate apes. The most racist thing that I've ever seen. Of course, it has been taken down, but this is still very much news. And of course, there were some negative comments, even from the fellow Republicans on this thing. Republican, of course, Senator, I shouldn't say, Republican Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina said who is the only black Republican senator, said on Friday that he sharply rebuked President Trump for posting a since-deleted clip. As I said, he did take it down. He said he never posted it. It was a lower staffer that did it, which is BS. We all know that. Trump stays up all night because he can't sleep and puts all this childish sixth grade level stuff out there. And, of course, the senator was just totally aghast that he would even do such a thing. And he said it's the most racist thing he's ever seen from the administration. And Scott, as we know, he is a strong Trump supporter. And but he's also black, and he could see where this thing was going. And he was hoping it was fake, but obviously, as we well know, it wasn't. So White House staffer around made the post. That's what Trump said, and of course it's taken down. He did this. Scott wasn't the only Republican, though, that to condemn the video, which the White House at first defended as a meme related to the Lion King. And that is from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. And I'm showing you her statement, and she got defensive. She said, let's just move on to other things. This is just stupid stuff. Let's talk about what's really going on in this world. Caroline Leavitt is the most butt-kissing White House press secretary that I've ever seen. And, she leads her little group in prayers before she goes out there. And then she goes out and, tells media, we're going to kick your butt and sue your butt if you don't show the president the best light and stuff. These evangelical people that claim to be holier than thou Christians, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later about this prayer breakfast, it just really upsets me. They put on this fake front when they're on the media, trying to say how holy and they are and stuff, and then they go behind the scenes and they just throw their weight around. But anyway, as you saw in that quote from her, she didn't think this was really anything, and she was talking about something that was made 3 years ago by a state Republican Party, that she was talking about the Lion King thing. And so again, other Republicans, the National Association of Advancement of Colored People, they had a statement, obviously, on that, and the Democrats, of course, are up in arms about it. So, again, other Democrats were characterized as other animals in this. Trump thinks the sixth grade type of humor is really funny, and he appeases his base because his base is basically made up of a lot of rednecks out there that half of them barely have a high school education, if even at that, and they all laugh around and think that's funny. The more you make fun of people and, we are white privilege, then, you can go ahead and just make this ridiculous, funny stuff. One of only 3 House Republicans who districts voted for former Vice President Kamala Harris in 2024 called the video wrong, even the president didn't intend it to be it that way. He said the president should apologize. Of course, the media has already asked him to apologize, and he said he's not going to do that. So, another one that really came out on this is Representative Lawyer, who is from the New York district. He said that the president should remove that. And other GOP senators joined their colleagues in the criticism. Senator Roger Wicker from Mississippi, who's the chairman of the powerful Senate Armed Services Committee, responded to news that Trump posted the video saying, "This is totally unacceptable. The president should take it down and apologize." Again, he didn't do it. He says, even though it was supposed to be a funny meme, he says it is terrible how this was done, and it is racist. The White House should do what anyone else does when they make a mistake, apologize and tell the American people that they're sorry. So said Senator Pete Ricketts, Republican from Nebraska. Like I said, the whole video is about 2 or 3 minutes. I showed you a brief clip. I'm not going to show it to you anymore because it's just terrible, but I put it up there so you can see what I'm talking about if you have not seen some of it. And again, this is Donald Trump, all right? This is classic Trump. He's put up another video from showing, poop coming out of a jet airplane, dropping poop on people. On one of them is a very popular TikTok person that talks a lot about Trump. Again, anybody that is anti-Trump or expresses their First Amendment right, if you don't agree with the president, then you are crap, you are terrible, you either agree with me or I'm going to make your life miserable. And this is not what America is. We all have the right to disagree, like on this podcast. I was a Republican for 51 years before I switched parties because I cannot support this present president. I know he's our commander-in-chief. He is the leader of our country, and that is fine and dandy, but again, we all have our rights if we tend to disagree to express our opinion, especially in commentary. Again, he wants to control the state media, so there you go. Again, Trump has always been on this rampage. He's still going on about the 2020 elections. That's why he sent his people down to Atlanta, Georgia. He still thinks that was robbed from him. He will not get over it. He still blames Biden for stuff. He's been president now going on for 2 years, and he still blames Biden for everything. This is his administration, not Biden's. You can't be sitting there complaining and whining, belly aching about past presidents, whereas you are the guy now in charge. Unbelievable stuff here, folks. Unbelievable stuff. It really is. So, speaking of our President Donald Trump, U.S.-Iran negotiations, let's talk a little bit about that. The two countries agreed to continue discussions after holding high-stake indirect talks in Oman yesterday. Iran's foreign ministers called it was a pretty good start, a pretty good discussion. As you know, Trump is threatening now war with Iran. This is why we changed everything to the Department of War. He is ready to rock and roll about anybody and everything. So, we do not want to go to war, but that's why he changed the Department of War, is because we are now starting to bully everybody and everything. And this guy here, Donald Trump, is ready to do it along with his wonderful people in that runs the Department of Defense, Pete Hegseth. We are ready to be the big bully of the world. Now, again, we also some other news that's going on. There's a funding fight, as you're well aware of. Senate Majority Leader John Thune said in conversations on the Department of Homeland Security funding bill will continue this weekend. Again, both Democrats and Republicans, because of what's been happening with ICE, they're ready to defund ICE until these people get their act together. Enough is enough. And this is affecting them on even a local level. You know, we got the midterms coming up, and even the Republicans are starting to get nervous because of how ICE is basically out of control. And, you know, when you see two people who have been killed and they continue to use aggressiveness and weapons towards people who are allowed to protest and express their, their First Amendment rights and free speech and protest, they're starting to see the writing on the wall. You know, they're going to lose in midterms because people are sick and tired of it. And the White House said Trump is willing to consider some of the Democrats do mind for ICE reforms, but others are non-starters. And that's basically where we're at with this, you know. And I don't think, you know, when we've already given billions of dollars to Homeland Security and ICE that we've taken away from people who need health care, and we need Medicare and Medicaid. Again, they took all that money and put it into ICE because Trump wants white privilege, white people only in the U.S. Let's get rid of everybody else who are illegal immigrants. And it was supposed to be used for those who had, as he always says, you know, felonies, they're, you know, child molesters, people who have killed people. They're all coming across the border. Well, those are the people you're supposed to be going after. But of course, that's what he sold for his bill of goods to his base. But as you're well aware of, you know, ICE is arresting 3,000 people a day by quota demanded to them. So that, you know, no matter what they are, they can be living here for 30 years. They have no criminal record. They're just picking them up and throwing them in all of these jail cells and prisons and stuff that have been billed from your tax dollars, run by people who are all Trump supporters and third-party people who are making billions of dollars off of these, that the government pays them to house all of these so-called illegal immigrants. I mean, it's just a big racket where people, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And moving on with some other news, you've probably seen this too on the Grammy Awards. Yeah. This is, again, this is classic Donald Trump. During the Grammys, of course, there were some comedians making fun of Donald Trump and about the Epstein files. And of course, Donald Trump didn't like that. He went on again, overnight tangent, as you can see here, condemning everybody, the comedian. He's condemning the networks. How dare anybody make fun of a public figure like Donald Trump? That's what comedians do, Mr. President, is people will make fun of you. That is their constitutional right to have a little fun and do parody. It is just like Saturday Night Live. They make fun of the White House administration all the time. But Trump, he can't take it. He acts like a child and goes on these little rampant Trumpsters, ramps, as I like to call them, and totally becomes unhinged. And there's just no reason for it. They're really, I don't know. It's just, again, classic Trump. You saw that. Isn't it unbelievable? Anyway, so Donald Trump has also told the Senate's top Democrat, Chuck Schumer, that he will unfreeze funds for major infrastructure projects in New York City that they have been asking for if he supports renaming Dulles International Airport and Penn Station after him. The demand, which was first reported on Thursday by a Punchbowl News, comes after the president in October halted $18 billion in funding for a major subway line expansion in New York City, as well as a new rail tunnel connecting the city to New Jersey. The funding freeze was announced on the first day of a 43-day government shutdown in which Schumer, who represents the state of New York, played a major role. Now, a spokesman for Schumer did not respond to a request for comment from The Guardian, which was the newspaper that, first put the story out. Now, Trump, who's not eligible to serve as another term as president, has moved to put his name on a host of government buildings and websites since taking office a year ago, including the Kennedy Center and the U.S. Institute for Peace. It is unclear if either change is actually legal. He has also pushed for congressional Republicans to create a new tax advantage investment accounts for young people, also called Trump accounts. And he's also reporting to supposedly putting up a 250-foot arch across the river from Washington, D.C. that would dwarf the Lincoln Memorial. Again, Trump, wants his name on everything. The entire United States, he wants to really call this the United States of Trump if he had it his way. This guy is there's something I think actually wrong with him. I mean, I've been on this planet now for quite a while, and I have never seen one man so obsessed with his likeness, his image, and he thinks he's next to God himself, the most important figure in the entire planet. And everybody will have to remember him and name him and remember him as Donald Trump. I can guarantee you, the first Democratic president that gets into the White House is going to take all this crap down, and he knows it. So it's not going to be up there forever. Such as the Kennedy Center, and I've talked about this before about the Kennedy Center and him putting his name up there. And since he's done that, of course, every major performer has pulled out of the Kennedy Center. They refused to do shows there because the Kennedy Center was so long just a memorialization of John F. Kennedy. The Kennedy family has just been so upset about this. And, of course, it seems like for whatever reason, people are powerless to do anything about it. And since everybody is canceled and pulled out of there, of course, Donald Trump now says he's going to, shut it down for 2 years and totally renovate the whole place. The Kennedy name is still up there, but it's now the Donald Trump the keyword "and" that's up there. So I don't understand his obsession with having to have his name up there all over the place. I really don't. This is the most. He's so condescending and so full of himself, and it's sad. It really is. Again, no other sitting president. They've had their names put on there, like Reagan International and stuff, but that was done after they left office or after a president has passed away. They do like to put somebody's name in memorialization, stuff like that, and Congress passes a bill to do that. And that's to honor for the service that they've done. But this guy, he isn't in office right now, and he's just going about saying, Trump this, Trump that, Trump, 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 Trump. You want this? You're going to put Trump, Trump, Trump. I'm the God. I'm the king. You must do that. And so I don't know what you folks out there think about all that, but it's just going a little too far. All right, moving on to other news. President Trump referred to Representative Thomas Massey, who is a Republican of Kentucky, as a moron at the National Prayer Breakfast in Washington, D.C. this past Thursday. He is an automatic no on whatever I tried to put through office, said, referencing Massey's opposition to pass legislation pushed by the president and other Republicans. And if you don't believe me on that, watch this clip.
Is an automatic no. No matter what. If we did welfare reform, if we did the greatest thing in history for religion, no matter what we did, no matter how good it is, greatest tax cuts, and we just did the greatest tax cuts in history, he voted against. He voted. Now, no matter what we do, this moron, no matter what it is. We could put them all together. I think, Mike, what would you say the top 5 things? Name them. We'll put them in one bill, and we'll put them before we'll get 100% vote, except for this guy named Thomas Massey. There's something wrong with him. We call him Rand Paul Jr. It's like they just vote no. They love voting no. They think it's good politically. The guy's polling at about 9%. It's not good. But we have great support, and we have great support for religion. I've done more for religion than any other president. When Paula was saying that, it was so nice. I was proud of it. And I said, that's true. I told the people backstage. What she said is true. Who else would say that, right? But it is true. But then I said, but that's not saying much, because not too many presidents have done too much for religion. I want to tell you that. Certainly modern day presidents, they bailed out on you. They bailed out.
Went on to say, if we did welfare reform, if we did the greatest thing on the history for religion, no matter what we did, no matter how good it is, he continued, no matter what we do, this moron, no matter what it is, well, we'll put the top things in one bill, and he said we'll get 100% vote except for this guy named Thomas Massey. There's something wrong with him. We like to call him Rand Paul Jr., as you saw in the clip. He is also he's another guy that also opposes legislation, which are put out by the Republicans. Now, what is wrong with this situation? Historically, let me get a sip of my coffee here. All right. Historically, the prayer breakfast, which is hosted by the president and for Congress, is a very special, it's very somber, usually a guest pastor from all sorts of religions, whether Protestant, Catholic, LDS, whatever, but they have a speaker who is of religious faith speak at these things, and it is to bring the congressional representatives together to thank God, to pray, and this nation was. Remember the key words: one nation under God, and that's what the prayer breakfast has typically been done. It's respectful, and it is done in a sense of unity that through prayer and through God and our Lord, that this we will have a certain heavenly force to help guide us and make the right decisions as we go forth as a country. That's what the prayer breakfast is supposed to be. And of course, Donald Trump has completely destroyed and walked away from that norm and makes stupid, silly comments like this and thinks it's a joke. He even went on to say, I think I'm good enough. I'm going to get to heaven. I'm going to make it. I'm Donald J. Trump. I'll get there. So you see, how, again, everything he has touched, it just goes to crap. And the National Prayer Breakfast, which is, again, was something that's always supposed to be very special and done, he makes a joke about that. I need this to be all about me. If it's not about me and what I do and what I am, then I don't want to talk about it. It's either about me or I'm going to, make it about me. If it's not about me, it's going to be about me. So that's what you're seeing here. Now, public opinion polling about the National Prayer Breakfast, by the way, reveals that even the so-called benefits of the Trump administration to those select faith groups crusading against reproductive rights and the LGBTQ community rights are rejected by majorities within faith communities other than white evangelicals, of course. Now, according to the Public Religion Research Institute, majorities of white mainland Protestants and black Protestants say abortion should be legal in most or all cases, as well as plurality of Catholics. The vast majority of U.S. women of faith have used or currently are using birth control. The PRRI also found that the majorities of all major religious groups in the United States support government-backed health insurance programs covering contraceptives and supporting non-discrimination protections for the LGBTQ community, and much less attention is paid to the Trump administration's manifold attacks on the rights and safety of faith communities. The administration has systematically targeted religious freedom both at home and abroad, including through its marquee policy prioritizing of instituting a Muslim ban. The administration also has presided over a nation with an alarming uptick of anti-Semitic and Islamophobic hate crimes, and its policies have contributed to a climate conducive to white nationalism. No kidding. The administration has turned America's back on religious minorities in China and refugees fleeing religious persecution around the world since it took office. The administration has weaponized a narrow set of conservative Christian beliefs in order to harm others. So, as you can see, with this prayer breakfast, and as this statement has just been made, white privilege and evangelical so-called Christians, pro-Republican, and as you saw with the ICE going into Minnesota, it started off with an attack on religious groups there as well, and when they send thousands of ICE agents in there, it was, to round up so-called illegal immigrants. They're going after, even those who are Muslim or other faiths up there, Islamic. Again, this country was again founded on freedom of religion. I mean, you even got people who are, satanic, which they can call that a religion, You don't see any of the Trump administration going after any of that, except for those who are, non-white, or he doesn't even like the Pope, So it's sad that all this crap that you see going on here, an attack on our religious beliefs here in the United States, because we believe in white nationalism. So again. This guy is very, very odd. So also President Donald Trump on Thursday announced his launch of Trump X. As you see in this crawl behind me, Trump RX is a direct-to-consumer website that is key to his administration's efforts to lower prescription drug costs in the U.S. Now, I'm going to make a quick disclaimer here. I've said on a previous podcast that when this site was first announced, I thought it'd be something as a for-profit for the Trump administration. And I still kind of stand by that because it's odd how all these drug people who have so far lowered their prices, these drug manufacturers who make these prescription products for the consumer, get on Trump's website. And as you can see again, too, this website also spends more time on its beginning opening glorifying Donald Trump and everything that he has done before you get into the actual products that are on there. And so as you can see how this website works, it shows the discounts that are supposed to be available to the consumers if they go buy directly from the drug manufacturer, and they pay cash. And, of course, that was Trump's efforts for lower prescription costs in the United States. Now, the president said millions of Americans would save money through the platform, but it's still very unclear if all patients, particularly those with insurance coverage, will see more cost savings by using what the site has to say in purchasing their medications than they would through existing methods. Now, Trump RX targets people who are willing to pay with cash and forego insurance. So let me pause right there. Cash, that's the key word. How many people in America, other than Trump's special billionaires who have money running out their hind end, can afford to pay cash for prescriptions? Not a lot of people. All right, that was why we were trying to have some sort of subsidized health care here in the United States like other countries do, because most people don't have the money to pay cash for prescriptions. And now many millions of Americans don't even have enough money to afford health care. Now, when you see premiums at $2,000, $3,000 a month or so, okay, what are they supposed to do? Just pull that out of their butt? Huh? They can't. So you can understand the situation here. How many people can actually pay cash for prescriptions, as what this website is supposed to do? Now, he says you're going to save a fortune. This is also so good for the overall health care, Trump said at an event as he unveiled his site. Now, of course, as I said, the site does not sell drugs directly to American patients, but gives them access to the links to the manufacturer. It's a central hub that points them to drug makers that are offering discounts on certain products of their own direct-to-consumer sites, or gives them discount coupons to take to the pharmacies. Again, I can guarantee you somehow in the back end here, Trump is making money off this website. He doesn't do anything for free or anything free to the American people. Somehow, he's getting some a little back end money here somehow. But let's just go ahead and give him the benefit of the doubt. So let's talk about some companies like Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk. They're allegedly already offering their blockbuster obesity drugs at hefty discounts to cash-paying patients anyway, even before the site was even put up, even before Trump talked about the reductions on the platform. Zepbound, which is also a weight loss injection, sends consumers to the company Lilly Direct platform where they can order the treatment and submit their own prescription details. That's one example. Novo and at least 14 other drug makers have negotiated agreements with the Trump administration to participate on the platform and voluntarily sell certain medications at a discount to Medicaid patients. Those landmark deals are part of Trump's broader most favored nation policy, which pushes to link U.S. drug prices to the lowest ones abroad. Now, at launch, the site features only medications from the first 5 companies to strike a deal with the Trump administration. That includes Lilly, EMD, Serono, Novo Nordisk, Pfizer, and AstraZeneca, according to a White House fact sheet. Hopefully more will come on board. It will list drugs from other companies in the coming months, they say on the platform. The platform is the government's latest efforts to try to rein in U.S. prescription drug prices, which are 2 to 3 times higher on average than those in other developed nations. We already know that. And up to 10 times more than in certain countries, according to the RAND Corporation, a public policy think tank. But Trump RX doesn't seem like it is the only solution to that issue for most Americans, said Juliet Kavinsky, deputy director of the program on Medicare policy at KFF. Now, this is a health policy research organization. The cash pay offerings would be better deals for patients without insurance, but it is difficult to assess exactly how many people stand by to benefit from Trump RX, she added, if they're able to get drug coverage from their insurance companies at a relatively affordable copay. Then there's not a great upside of using the Trump RX website, she stated. So, and I can go on and on about this, but as you can see, the website is, of course, it's in infancy. We need to give it a chance. I'm going to be transparent about that. But for those who can afford to pay cash for any prescription, God bless them. But there's not a lot, like I said, majority of Americans who have no health care at all. I mean, if they can't afford health care and they can't afford the premiums, how the hell are they going to go on this website and pay cash for any of these medications? Where are they supposed to get that? These are the people that should have access to that site, and they're broke. If you think they're, cash is cash. We're not even talking about credit cards, ladies and gentlemen. They got to have cash. They go to, they go directly to the consumer, and now, whether they're going to take credit cards or not, I don't know. But you can see what the research people are saying about this website. If those who do have insurance, their copay is going to be a lot less than them going on this site directly and pay cash for it. So we'll have to see what happens and give it a chance. President Donald Trump also said the federal government should get involved now in elections in states that are able to legally and honestly administer them on their own. If they can't, then somebody should take over, and Trump said it in the Oval Office. What am I talking about here now is Trump feels that there are about 15 states in the United States that can't handle their state elections, so the federal government should get involved. Watch this clip.
The federal government should get involved. If they can't count the votes legally and honestly, then somebody else should take over.
The Republicans should say, we want to take over. We should take over the voting in at least 15 places. The Republicans ought to nationalize the voting.
It is an agent for the federal government in elections. I don't know why the federal government doesn't do them anyway.
Now, Democrats are raising concerns that the government may be trying to interfere in the midterms, pointing to, in part to Trump's recent comments that Republicans should nationalize elections. And that's why he went down to Georgia with the FBI Director Kash Patel being on site, and some other people that I'm going to talk about here in a minute. And because of the 2020 elections, he there now feels that none of the elections should be done on their own, that the federal government should do that. And he also wants to send ICE down to make sure that people who are voting are legitimate, okay? And as we already know, I'm going to get into this a little bit, the Constitution says that the elections are supposed to be run by the state, not by the federal government. Now, in that same presser, Trump also, as he always does, attempted to demoralize Caitlin Collins of CNN for her simple question about the Epstein files, which she was bringing up there, instead of answering the question, as he typically does with all women reporters who seem to challenge him. He goes off on a childish tangent against her and CNN as well. Watch this.
A lot of women who are survivors of Epstein's are unhappy with those redactions that came out. Some of them, entire witness interviews are totally blacked out. Do you think that they should be more transparent?
With the fact that they thought they released too much. I heard that, and you tell me something else. No, I think it's really time for the country to get onto something else. Really, now that nothing came out about me, other than it was a conspiracy against me, literally by Epstein and other people. But I think it's time now for the country to maybe get onto something else.
But what would you say to people who feel like they haven't gotten justice, Mr. President?
Something that people care about. Yeah, what did you say? Go ahead.
What would you say to the survivors who feel like they haven't gotten justice?
You are the worst reporter. No wonder CNN has no ratings because of people like you. She's a young woman. I don't think I've ever seen you smile. I've known you for 10 years. I don't think I've ever seen a smile on your face.
I'm asking you about survivors.
You know why you're not smiling? Because you know you're not telling the truth. And you're a very dishonest organization, and they should be ashamed of you.
Now, this woman always holds her own. No matter how much Trump demoralizes this CNN reporter, White House correspondent reporter, she always stands her ground. She's strong, and I got to give her, just kudos for her strong, upstanding position. And no matter what he says to her, she still tries to ask the questions, and she's very, very professional, and I like that in her. And CNN needs to keep her. And, again, Trump wants state control of all the media. He wants nothing but favorable things come out of the news networks when they're talking about him and the Republicans and the Trump administration. He wants state-controlled media. You are not allowed to say anything negative about me or my administration. It has to be positive, or I'm going to throw you all in jail, or I'm going to sue you all. That's what he wants to do. Your First Amendment rights, your Fourth Amendment rights do not exist in the Trump administration. I am the king. I am the number one uno guy here, and you say good things about me or don't say them at all. And so, and if he doesn't, then when he's on live television, then he cuts down the people. All right. So the statement that he made there makes some dramatic escalation of Trump's stance on election administrations, advancing the position that Democrats had warned he would stake out with his calls for stricter voting rules and investigations into alleged fraud. And he stated about this, and now that he's in office and the Supreme Court gave him basically blanket authority to do whatever he wants, and he can face no control or anything or any type of legal action by the Congress, unless it's impeachment, because he has full blanket authority to do so. Now, whether or not the Supreme Court would say you can go ahead and do federal control of elections, I don't think that's going to happen, because that's been embedded in our Constitution, no matter what he tries to say, and the Republican Party knows that. They cannot take over free elections of states. If you want to turn this place into, the Russia or communist China, or Cuba. If you want to go ahead and do that, then that's what you're going to get with federal controlled elections. He basically says, I'm in here now, the Republican Party is in here, and I should be the Republican Party from here until the earth completely goes away to run and control the United States. That's what he wants with state controlled elections. Now, let's talk about Article 1 of the United States Constitution, what it specifically says. And it says that the times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof, though Congress can pass federal regulations too. Now, the United States Supreme Court has interpreted this to mean that states have control over voter registration, election supervision, prevention of fraud, counting of ballots, and more. And it's always been that way. And in the case of Georgia, they went through that thing 3 times. 3 times they went through that and never found any election fraud. And with other states that have done that, they have their people in place and done it many times over and have found no election fraud. Even before computers became apparent, you remember the Chad thing here in Florida years ago, when they had the elections of George Bush. They went through them manually, one by one by one, before we got the good supercomputers that we have today. And again, they did it and found out that Bush won that election. So now, when you ask for more details on how and where Trump would want to nationalize elections, White House spokesman Abigail Jackson did not offer any specifics. President Trump cares deeply about the safety and security of our elections. That's why he's urged Congress to pass the SAVE Act and other legislation proposals that would establish uniform standard of photo ID for voting, prohibit no excuse mail-in voting, and at the end practice of ballot harvesting, she said in a statement. Now, this SAVE Act, let me talk to you a little bit about that if you haven't heard about it. What that specifically says, and again, Congress is having problems with this too as well. Because what the SAVE Act proposal is that before you vote, you would have your driver's licenses don't matter, ladies and gentlemen. If this SAVE Act passes, what you got to do is you got to show up to vote. You got to prove you're an American citizen, and the driver's license doesn't cut it. You would have to have your passport with you, and or your birth certificate showing that you were born in the United States, and it has to match your name. The problem with this is that millions and millions of Americans do not have a passport, nor do they have other access to their birth certificate. And people who get married and have a name change, could cause a problem for you as well, and you wouldn't be able to vote if your name doesn't match like your birth certificate and or your passport and you got married. So you can see all the crap that this thing causes. This is again another example of the Republican Party trying to find loopholes to stage elections to where it's all in their favor. The gerrymandering of voting districts and all that, these Republicans are trying to turn the United States into a state-controlled party to where they're in place, we're going to stay in place, and we're going to have white privilege, we're going to have white nationalism, and this is the America that we foresee all through Project 2025. And if that doesn't scare the hell out of you, there's something wrong with you. Again, this is why I left the Republican Party. This is not the Republican Party that I knew, that I busted my butt for and supported clear back to the Reagan era, and back in the early 80s when I was a young man, and still, again, if things would change, I would probably go back to the Republican Party, but it's not going to change that I can see in my lifetime. I'll be dead and gone by then. But as you can see, this is what we're coming to. The aggressiveness and they're using the name of the Republican Party, but that's not what the Republican Party is or has ever been. It's, it was basically founded on returning power back to the states and less government. And yes, having a strong military, I get that too, but not to the point to where they're going and taking out people here in the United States and throwing their weight around. So I digress, but this is why I just get so upset over this stuff. especially the SAVE Act. That's a joke, So, Trump's suggestions comes as the Justice Department has sued dozens of states in an attempt to force them to turn over their voter rolls, alarming election officials. Again, private information. The Justice Department wants that so they can find out who's all voting. That's an infringement on your privacy, ladies and gentlemen. Again, the Justice Department, the FCC, everything is now controlled by Trump's cronies and people he has personally put into there, including the FBI, and they all have marching orders. They don't work on behalf of you, the American people. They work on behalf of Donald Trump and what he wants and his, people inside his cabinet. Stephen Miller and Banyan, all those guys. All the Project 2025 people. That I think Trump is. He answers to them as well. So it also comes up the FBI seized hundreds of boxes of election materials last week from Fulton County, Georgia. I've told you about that. Elections office in connection with the 2020 election, which Trump says he won. He still believes he has won, even though everything else says differently. And then the other thing that's going on there, too, is, if you remember, is this lady right here, Tulsi Gabbard. What the hell was she doing down in Fulton, Georgia? And nobody seems to have an answer why she was there. All of a sudden, the Trump administration doesn't know why she's there. It's become a pass the buck situation. And she has been visibly silent about why she was there. In recent pressers now, Donald Trump says, she was there on behalf of Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi has gone on record and said, no, she was down there on behalf of Donald Trump. Now, Gabbard had a live speaker conference call with President Donald Trump about, the findings down there in Georgia, which I don't think they really found anything. They're trying to find something, and if they don't find something, they'll probably try to create something. So they can go on about their tangent about why they need federal control of elections. But we don't know if that's going to happen or not. So we'll have to wait and see. Now, in other news going on here in the Right Has Left podcast, 2 federal immigration agents who fired on Minneapolis protester Alex Preddy are now identified in government records as Border Patrol agents Jesus Ochoa and Customs and Border Protection Officer Raimundo Cortez. Now, the records viewed by ProPublica, which uncovered this information, list Ochoa 43 and Cortez 35 as the shooters during the deadly encounter last weekend that left Preddy dead and ignited massive protests and calls for criminal investigations. Now, both men were assigned to Operation Metro Surge. And these 2 agents, even though the federal government still refuses to identify them, have been placed on suspension. An immigration enforcement dragnet launched in December that sent scores of armed and masked agents across the city. CBP, which employs both men, has so far refused to release their names and has disclosed fewer other facts about the deadly incident, which comes days after a different immigration agent also shot and killed another Minneapolis protester, a 37-year-old mother of 3 named Renee Good. You remember her. Preddy's killing and the subsequent secrecy surrounding the agents involved comes as the country confronts the consequences of President Donald Trump's aggressive immigration crackdown. Of course, he said he was going to be a softer administration from that thing forward, and then, of course, he came out with that Obama meme. So who knows? The sweeps in cities across the country have been marked by scenes of violence against immigrants and U.S. citizens by agents allowed to hide their identities with masks, and almost unheard of practice in law enforcement. So let me pause there real quick to tell you a couple things. Part of the freeze of funds for ICE, the Democrats want these ICE agents going forward to wear body cameras and get rid of those damn masks. In other words, if you're going to do something, show them who the hell you are. Of course, the Republicans say you can't do that because we need to protect their families. That's their thing. We don't need to protect the families of the immigrants, but we need to protect them. Okay, so also I want to say very clearly that on these 2 ICE agents that I just talked to you about, this is alleged. We don't know if they're the actual shooters that, unalived Preddy. they are just two people who did fire shots. Okay, there's no way to put them that their actual weapons, took the life of Preddy. But they are two officers that were involved in that shooting. So I want to make that very clear. 2 words. They were involved in the shooting. There's no proof that they're the actual people that killed Preddy. And it is alleged. Everybody is innocent until proven guilty, even ICE agents. And we probably know well the fact that nothing's going to happen to these 2 guys because they're trying to say that they are protected by federal statutes to do what they want to do, but we don't know that. The state of Minnesota, of course, is still trying to, do something to bring justice to the death of Preddy, but we don't know how far it's going to go. So I just want to make that very, very clear. Now, as a result, the public has been kept from one of the chief ways it has to hold officers involved in such altercations accountable. Their identity, both through Democrat and Republican lawmakers, has called for a very transparent investigation into the killing of Preddy, a 37-year-old intensive care unit nurse working at the Department of Veterans Affairs Hospital. Some of the quotes were, "We must have a transparent, independent investigation to the Minnesota shooting and those responsible, no matter what their titles are, and it must be held accountable." So said Republican Senator John Curtis of Utah, who wrote on X on Monday. The agency also sent a notice to some members of Congress on Tuesday acknowledging that 2 agents fired Glock pistols during the altercation that left Preddy dead. We don't know if it's these 2 or not. Again, I make that very clear. We don't know. The notice does not include the agents' names. I just brought you 2 agents' names that have been released through their forms of investigation. And after a week of protest and calls from lawmakers for review, the Justice Department said on Friday that its Civil Rights Division is investigating the shooting. Yeah, I bet you are. A DOJ spokesman said did not answer questions and didn't say anything more about the shooting. We do know that there were over 10 shots that were fired, and other agents may have also fired their weapons. I did say that. Okay, we don't know if it's these 2 or not. Now, Ocha is a Border Patrol agent who joined CBP in 2018. Garres joined in 2014, and he was assigned to a special response team which conducts high-risk operations like those of police SWAT units. Records show that both men, of course, are from South Texas. Both are Hispanic, as I know, and that's kind of unusual since we are rounding up Hispanic immigrants, and these 2 Border Patrol agents are Hispanic themselves. Kind of an unusual situation there. But again, as I have mentioned before, you are getting a lot of ICE agents, and of course the Democrats are bringing this up as well. A lot of ICE agents who have had very little training in law enforcement. They're given a federal badge, and they're just saying, go out there and get them, attaboy. Give us 3,000 roundups a day. That's what we want you to do. And it also has been proven that a lot of these ICE agents don't even have a high school education, more or less college education, and no background in law enforcement. They are just applied. No background checks are done on them because they need them so bad, and they're given a job. Thus, the billions and billions of dollars that was given to Department of Homeland Security. Now, since we've had these unfortunate deaths, they're finally getting smart and saying, okay, enough is enough. We need to have some accountability with Department of Homeland Security and specifically ICE agents. So we'll see what happens from that. Now, since his return to office, President Donald Trump has undertaken a series of changes aimed at reshaping the look and real feel of the White House. Now, earlier in this podcast, I told you about a few of those things that he's trying to do. He wants his name on everything and everybody, if he can possibly do that. I just want to kind of, talk a little bit about this a little bit, going back to the Kennedy Center, because it just absolutely floors me that a guy like this wants his name on everything. It's just, it's weird that everybody is so obsessed with his name that he wants the Trump name on every possible landmark and train station and airport in the United States. And he wants gold paint on it. He wants a lavish, designs on it. And I mean, I even showed you the Trump website earlier. You saw the golden eagle on that, and Donald Trump's name emblazed on everything. Why is one man so obsessed with what his name has to be and put on everything? Why such insecurity that a guy like that has to have such glamorous things? I mean, again, you see this in communist China. You see this in Russia when it comes to the leaders. It's like, we are so goddamn special that you need to bow down to us and see the lavishness. You know, Adolf Hitler was obsessed with that. He wanted this beautiful city created on behalf of his name, which never came to pass, of course. And he wanted this. He did, you know, the delusion of grandeur of me and everybody else, that you need to look at me and see all of that. So it's just weird. And as I wrap up this podcast, you think about that, you know, and I understand that, well, the guy's raising money for all this stuff on his own. It's not the taxpayers' deal. So whatever he wants to do, so be it. That's, you know, who cares, you know, as long as it's not. But that's not the case, you know, like when he sued his own Department of Treasury and the Internal Revenue Service for billions of dollars. That is your taxpayer money in the ultimate end that you're paying to satisfy his grievances. When it comes to stuff like that, that is yours and my money, ladies and gentlemen. And because he felt that they'd done him wrong because, you know, his tax records got released, which most, you know, other past presidents have released their tax records. He didn't want his released, you know, that I'm different, you know. And yes, I understand it was done fraudulently. I know a guy inside did it because he was upset at how things are going. I understand that, but still, to sue for all that money, and of course, since he runs the Department of Treasury and he runs the IRS basically with his people, that guy's just going to say, "Okay, I'll get you checked, Mr. President. Just hang on there," you know. Because he threatens them, you know, as he does with everybody, especially people in Congress. He will threaten them behind the scenes if you don't do what I tell you to do, because I'm your king. You know, it's just, he gets on the phone, you know, "Hey, you don't do what I want to do here, by God." And of course, they all turn around on the camera and make excuses of why they vote the way they do. And, you know, what's really going on is they were threatened. You know, the families are threatened, you know, that it's just, me, you know, gosh, I'm my age, you know, what are you gonna no, I mean, I've said very nice things about this administration when they do nice things, so don't get me wrong. I'm transparent just like everybody else. I'll say with the Democrats, if they do something screwed up, I will tell you. You know, we've had Democrats arrested here in Florida for doing stupid crap, as they well should be, you know, but anyway. So that's my show for this week here on The Right Has Left. I hope you've enjoyed it. I look forward to your comments. Until next week, you try to have a good week. Take care.